This is a sidewalk in the American suburb where I grew up, or at least, well, it could be a full sidewalk, just sort of ends here. It also starts just visibly over there. But interestingly enough, there's actually a big reason for this. And in fact, the US government and state governments claim it's not their responsibility. Any township that try and solve this problem of the pedestrian infrastructure, well, they end up not being able to do much due to one sneaky reason. In Deptford Township, the township in which I am standing right now, they made a big announcement last year that ruffled a few feathers. They said if your student lives within 2 miles of their local school, they will no longer receive free public bus services to the school. They have to walk. This sounds like a reasonable request if you're used to more British or European roads, but here, oh my God, the reaction was so immediate and so fierce, the school district completely scrapped the plan within a few days. My name is Edinger, and welcome to my hometown. Today, I'm going to be taking you on a walk from where I grew up to where I went to elementary school to show you why Americans don't walk to school. This is my family home. I grew up in this small home here in Deptford, New Jersey. Lived in it for the first 14 years of my life. I had to go to school, an elementary school. I live very close to the elementary school, just about a mile or 1.5 kilometers or so to get there. But I was never really allowed to walk. I had to get the school bus. So I figured, let me just take you on my walk that I would do if I were allowed to walk to school. This is Naratican Apartments. It's quite a nice little development. I wasn't actually a part of it. We were like the one holdout family that had the land from ages ago. There's lots of trees, there's lots of people. It's a really nice, safe place. But you might have noticed something pretty important seems to be missing in this safe little development. Sidewalks. There are no sidewalks anywhere here in this nice development. Interesting that, isn't it? I have to just walk on the road. There's not really much space here for me to walk, and it's not really comfortable. There's poison ivy all over this town, so I don't really want to get that as a kid either. Thankfully, it's Labor Day, so this street was not busy. Oh, but now I'm about to go to Highland Avenue. A lot of people might just be very used to America the way it is right now, and they're just like, well, this is how it's always been. Actually, no. There was a study that found that in 1969, about 50% of school children walked to school. And the number is much higher when it came to children that were living within a mile of their school. However, if you look at the data from recent times, that number's dropped to 13%. That's insane. Only 13% of school children are walking to school. And when you know the reasons why, it's not safe. It makes sense. Not just that, in the 70s, there was also this big stranger danger scare in America. And so a lot of parents were scared of letting their children out of the house walking anywhere because the strangers. And so that stigma against strangers, against going outside, prevented a lot of kids from naturally going out walking, and fewer people walking, less walking infrastructure. As you can see right now, I'm actually walking in the emergency lane. Back when I lived here, this emergency lane didn't actually exist. This was all just one big road. Very recently, they've converted this into a bike lane. A bike lane. This little dim white line, that's gonna protect the cycles. Yeah, no. You can't just put one bike lane up and expect people to bike. You need to have a network, similar to pedestrian stuff. And take note, I'm currently just walking on the road. There is no separation for me, and I'm a 35-year-old adult. I can do this. I used to do this walk all the time without my parents' permission to go to the library to play some RuneScape, but it's just crazy that this entire area can't afford a single sidewalk. Here we go. This is the first chance when I can kind of walk in the grass for a little bit. This is nice. I'm under a tree. There's a nice bit of greenery there. I'm finally able to avoid standing in the road where a lot of drivers will just absolutely book it down this road. This road says 25 miles an hour, but no one actually does that. No one does 25 down here because there's no repercussions of speeding. So most drivers that I see end up going like 50, 60 miles an hour up and down here because they can, really. And I'm only about 8 minutes into my walk, and now I've gotten to my first obstacle as a child pedestrian. Not only do I not have a pavement, I don't have a sidewalk, I kind of have to walk around this barrier. This is what the township thinks that the children should have to do. So I guess we just have to do it, right? So here we go. So, there we go. Just gotta get to the other side of this guardrail. Yet again, there's no sidewalk, no pavement. Carrying on. At least I can feel, as a pedestrian, a little protected by the presence of this guardrail. Oh, all right, let's just avoid the poison ivy. And look, oh my God, there's a bridge. For, I guess at some point in time, maybe people did walk back in the day in the 50s and 60s in this area. And you have this lovely bit of Woodbury Creek that goes through here, but we must carry on. I've got to go to school, I'm already late. And there's just a sign in the way. Oh, whoa, that is some very large poison ivy. That could have hit me right in the face. Look at that. Oh no, no thank you. This is the one thing you do not want. British people, your nettles are nothing compared to poison ivy and poison sumac. This stuff is insane. And look at it. Ah! Woo! Woo! You know what? I think a spider has claimed this area. He's got 8 legs, I only have 2. He's more of a pedestrian than I'll ever be. I'm just gonna have to do what I did as a kid. I didn't want to do this either. Now I've got to get in the road while drivers go way over the speed limit. All right, so at least I'm not gonna get poison ivy today. You know, we're gonna stand this way. We are in the cycle lane though, so if any cyclists did exist here at the moment, I could be hit by them, but hey, rather them than a car. Craziest part about this journey at the moment, I haven't really needed to cross the road yet. So thankfully I haven't needed some sort of pedestrian crossing, despite the fact that, well, there hasn't been any yet. A 2004 study found that 40% of pedestrian deaths actually occur at crossings without a crosswalk. And a more recent updated study found that that number is 74%. So 74% of pedestrian deaths in the USA are because they're crossing at a place that doesn't have a safe crosswalk for them. You'd think that this would cause maybe the townships to then build crosswalks, but they kind of get hung up a bit. You see a lot of townships like Deptford, where I am right now, they do these meetings every 8 years to talk about the infrastructure in the town and see how they can improve the lives of their citizens. It turns out they're aware of all these issues, and in fact the people that are in charge, they understand what complete streets are, building streets for all forms of infrastructure, road, bike, pedestrian, public transport. But every time they've tried to initiate things, the most they can really do is this, nothing. They just take an emergency lane and they put a bike on segments of it and they say, that's it. That's all we can do. And the reason is, the one sneaky law that gets in the way, they don't have jurisdiction. The incredible large majority of all the roads in New Jersey are run by the New Jersey Department of Transportation. That is at a state level. So if a township is like, hey, we're having a lot of people die on our roads because of the poor design, we'd like to fix it. They have to then appeal to the actual state to be like, hey, can you guys solve this problem for us? And if the state goes, no, we don't have budget, or we're doing all this other stuff like corruption and stuff, they're like, well, the best we can do is paint a bike on the side of an emergency lane and say, we tried our best. And here is a point where I kind of need to cross the street. I don't have a way to cross the street safely. And so there's cars coming, there's a public library, I'm gonna cross right here. And as a child, I don't have as much, perception. I don't have as much of a reaction time. I could just get hit by a car trying my best not to. This is true American infrastructure. We've got ourselves our first sidewalk, all right? Ta-da. Oh God, I'm so excited. Now you might be wondering why do we have the sidewalk just start here? What's going on? Is there a reason for this? Yes, actually, in the state of New Jersey, and pretty much every single state in the entirety of the USA, with the exception of some small towns in Connecticut and Washington, D.C., the way that sidewalks are maintained and repaired and even built is not actually down to the state at all. So if this is built, it could have been built by the homeowner here, or if a developer is building any new builds, they are required to put the minimum amount of sidewalks in for the people that live there, and that is it. That's why you have this patchwork of spaghetti where you just have the sidewalks like this, just sort of fucking end. That's it. Federally mandated, this is all I have to do, so that's all I'm going to do. There is no state or federal or even township level that require them to do the entire thing. The only part of transport infrastructure that the USA and almost every state really care about is this bit right here, the road for cars. When it comes to the pedestrian infrastructure, which is a very important part of the network, the cycling, the public transport, the pedestrian infrastructure, that is left out to the homeowner. If you're in the event in which you come across a bit of sidewalk that is broken up, you could trip and fall maybe, or like this clip I filmed the other day somewhere in National Park. No. Video. Yeah, that woman was upset that I was filming. I was like, why is there no sidewalk here? And she went, oh, it's because the person that's living here, she's elderly, can't do it. Usually the way this works is if you're having a broken bit of sidewalk or a missing bit of sidewalk, the township is actually meant to be monitoring, going around, or you could report it to them. And then they're meant to contact the homeowner and say, hey, see that cement in front of your house? That's your responsibility. You need to fix that. Or If you don't do it in 30 days, we'll do it for you and we'll bill you. Now, that actually was a system that made sense when they started it in the 70s. This way, the township wouldn't have to have all this responsibility for the huge amount of pavements, and they could just worry about the roads. The issue, as you can imagine, not everything is reported all the time. This also makes it so that because there's no one body in charge of all of the network, it means that you're just going to have crumbling bits of infrastructure everywhere or large swathes of no sidewalks at all. Now, I did bring up in the intro that Deptford Township did make an announcement last year that they were no longer going to provide free public buses for students to go to school if they were within 2 miles. And everyone was really upset about this.
This here is an example of some of the roads her son may have to use on his walk to school. As you can see, there's no sidewalks here.
And they haven't said they're going to put crossing guards at these intersections or anything like that. So that's nerve-wracking for somebody who's, 9, 10 years old.
If you didn't know, 55% of students in the USA are currently bused to school, and this costs approximately $21 billion per year, or somewhere around $850 per child going to school. That's a lot of money that is honestly wasted when you could just invest in pedestrian infrastructure, and then it's not just for children, everyone can benefit. So as I'm approaching my school here, the sidewalk quality has just a little bit increased. You can see that these are actually a bit more fresh. We've also got the standard little raised bit of buttons here so that blind people ideally are able to feel them and know, oh, there's a crossing here. And as you can see, we've actually got our first pedestrian crossing now that we are 1 block from the school. The US did initiate the Safe Routes for Schools program, which essentially put a lot more budget into making sure that kids would have a safe route to get to school. They invested in more pedestrian crossings and safe walking infrastructure, but yet again, because it is not one body that is in charge of it, it kind of falls flat.
Here's how this all works. All across the US, townships and states offload the cost, maintenance, and even the legal liability of sidewalks to homeowners, despite the fact that sidewalks are usually public land owned by the government. So if someone slips or trips on the poorly maintained sidewalk that is on public land, the government can avoid being sued by placing that responsibility instead on the nearest private homeowner. Just imagine what the roads would look like if any potholes or cracks near your house were your responsibility, or if the closest telephone pole went down and you had to fix the power grid. It's just nonsense. So because the system was built to avoid any responsibility, it is working as intended. Nothing ever gets done, and the problems only get worse.
There we go. So, and we get to cross our first street with an actual crosswalk. How exciting. Lovely. Now, when it comes to the Safe Routes for Schools program, at some schools, they did find that by building the crosswalks and pedestrian infrastructure around the school, they were able to increase the amount of students walking by 13 to 20%. And California found that they actually had a decrease of 75% of pedestrian accidents by increasing the amount of safe routes to school. Yet, all this positive data, yet again, doesn't do much if the people in charge of maintaining this bit of pavement, this bit of sidewalk, are the people that live in this house, that I'm assuming are not professional pavers and also don't really care because the system doesn't work for them either. It does bring back memories doing this walk. I think I might have done this walk once when I was in 6th grade, and it was a walk home. And it was because I was so used to walking along that scary bit of road just to get to the library. But it genuinely felt every single time like I could die, like it was a very scary thing. I was a child and I was afraid of getting hit by a car. My mom, luckily, was someone who did teach me, don't cross the street ever. Delsey Drive will kill you. And so because of that, because of like ingraining this fear of roads into me, it made me so that, well, I didn't walk that much, but she was just trying to keep me safe in the world that she was bringing me up. Here I am, time for me to go to school. The school is quite literally right over there, and yet the sidewalk ends. This is where we have buses, school buses that come down, the cars can come down. Not even visible from the school is any student in Deptford Township actually given a safe route across a road. And I think that is why there was such a public backlash against the township for having the audacity to try and save some money while the upper superintendents of the township make 150 grand a year. They can go, oh, sorry guys, we can't afford to pay for the school buses for your kids anymore. They can just walk. What they're essentially telling the Americans that live here is, your children can just die. We'd rather they die than put any sort of sensible system in place. And I know that, like I said, A lot of times this isn't down to the township, it is a state problem where the Department of Transportation of New Jersey needs to get their act together. But as any American in my comment section is probably sounding off, this is not a New Jersey problem. This is not a Pennsylvania problem. This is a US problem that needs someone to step up and take control. They need some sort of Department of Transportation that actually focuses on pedestrian infrastructure, or more and more children will die. More and more people will die. It was an international news story that came across my feed that 2 hockey stars were cycling in Salem County, New Jersey, and they got hit by a car. And people say all the time, oh, it's because of the distracted driving. No, it's not. You have distracted driving in every country. What you don't have in every country is shitty infrastructure. So that is where America needs to step up to the fucking plate. Thank you very much for walking with me today. I hope things get better over here, even though it's been 30 years since I did this walk, and the only difference is a painted on bit of bicycle. So, probably not. Anyway, time to head back to London, where I don't think that I might die when I cross the road. Thanks for watching, and hopefully I'll see you on my channel next Sunday. Goodbye.